only do what God allows him to do, and nothing more, if anything at all. So we might as well choose to make the devil mad because of the way we choose to live, because he has no power here. Maybe you thought you heard God clearly about something, but the situation seems to continue to unravel. So what God is saying to somebody here is, trust me anyway, no matter how things look. That makes the devil mad. When we're obedient, it makes him really mad. That was my second point. So we have my first point, which is one step ahead, make the devil mad. My third point, surrounded by God. To be surrounded by God is no match for the enemy. When we live trusting God, the devil can surround us with a legion of demons, but God surrounds us with all of his protection. I got kind of a chuckle out of our story because the king of Syria wants to kill Elisha, basically. He's just not trying to capture him. He's trying to ultimately take his life. And I thought about all the times the devil has tried to take my life or destroy my life, but God would not let him. And you might have situations where the devil really tried to take your life, where he tried to destroy you or destroy your relationships, but you did not let him, and neither did God. So the king of Syria, he doesn't only send one soldier or two soldiers after Elisha. It says in verse 14, he says, he sent horses, he sent chariots, and he sent a strong force. They went by night and surrounded the city. He sent a lot of folks for one guy, right? That's a lot of people for one man. A whole army just to take out one man? Okay, that ought to get y'all, just really thinking. So how many? How many demons do you think come after us to ambush us? You think it's just one? Oh, absolutely not. It's more than one. Trust me on that. And the greater your life is for God, the more they come. It can be an army. It can be a legion. A legion in Roman times was 3,000 to 6,000 men. And you know how when things start happening in our lives, it seems like they just snowball. One thing after the other, after the other, after the other. You're like, God, please stop. When is it going to stop? When is this going to end? So remember, the demon-possessed man in the New Testament, and when Jesus asked his name, he said legion. That's because there were a lot of them possessing him. But 3,000 or 6,000 or 10,000, they will all fall because our rock and our God will bind them up so that they will not come near us. David says it, I claim it, and you ought to claim it too. But like Elisha's servant, when trouble comes, sometimes we settle into our favorite dysfunction. Right? Sometimes we settle into our favorite dysfunction. We settle into our favorite cuss words. We settle into our favorite nasty attitudes. Or we settle into our favorite guilt trips. Our same old fears begin to consume our thoughts. I'll never get married. I'll never get that house. I'll never get over my insecurity. I'll never get out of this mess. I'll never. You finish the sentence. Elisha's servant in verse 15 says this. It says, when the servant of the man of God got up and went out early the next morning, he saw an army with horses and chariots that had surrounded the city. The servant says, oh no, my Lord, what shall we do? Have you ever found yourself surrounded and you feel like Elisha's servant? My Fourth point, my final point. Perspective makes a difference. Perspective makes a difference. Elisha answers the servant just like God answers us a whole lot of times. He says, don't be afraid. He says, those who are with us are more than those who are with them. And so Elisha then prays, open his eyes, open my servant's eyes, that he might see. And once his eyes were open, he saw a hill filled with horses and chariots of fire all around Elisha. One of the names of God in the Old Testament is Lord of the armies, or Lord of hosts, because he has a whole host of angels that work at his command. Those chariots of fire were meant to display God's power to judge. There is no army in creation that can match the power of our God. So when life is closing in on us and we're surrounded, we need to have some perspective. We need to look beyond what we can see into the spiritual realm and know that the Lord of hosts surrounds us in our most troubled moments, and that we can trust his invisible army to protect us in a moment. I was reading an illustration, and I just want to share it with you. It was written by, he says, I remember taking my youngest son to one of the National Art Galleries in Washington, D.C. As we made our approach, I was so excited about what we were going to see. You know how it is when imagine taking Dominic to a National Gallery in D.C. He was decidedly unexcited, right? Oftentimes we take kids to certain places that may excite us, but they are unexcited. He said, but I just knew that once inside, he would have his mind blown and would thank me for what I had done for him that day. Well, as it turned out, his mind wasn't blown. It wasn't even activated. I saw things of such stunning beauty that brought me to the edge of tears. He yawned, he moaned, and complained his way through gallery after gallery. With every new gallery, I was enthralled. But each time we walked into a new art space, he begged me to leave. He was surrounded by glory, but saw none of it. He stood in the middle of wonders, but was bored out of his mind. His eyes worked well, but his heart was stone blind. He saw everything, but saw nothing. This is an art gallery example of the gifts God has given us to help us see that we have a glorious, intelligent designer who showers us with gifts and talents to let us know that there is a creator. The story reminds us of a glorious God who has all power and authority and uses